What if I told you that right now, without lifting a finger, without earning a dime, you already have an account in the richest bank in existence, a bank that never closes, never runs out, and never denies a withdrawal? This isn't a bank on Wall Street, and it isn't guarded by men. It's the Bank of God, and your name is already written on the account. The only question is, will you dare to claim what's already yours? The first truth to grasp is that the Bank of God is unlimited. This is not a poetic phrase. It is a spiritual reality. In the divine economy, there is no concept of shortage, no such thing as not enough, and no crisis of resources. What exists in the spirit is infinite, eternal, and inexhaustible. The universe was created with abundance in mind. Look at the stars in the sky, the grains of sand on the shore, the flowing rivers and endless cycles of nature. Creation itself is a testimony to the overflow that God provides. If such abundance is visible in nature, how much greater must the unseen supply of heaven be? The problem is not with supply. The problem is with human perception. People live as though life is limited, as though they must compete for scraps, and cling to scarcity. They believe opportunities are rare, wealth is only for the few, and blessings must be rationed. Yet this mindset is a distortion. When you connect with the higher truth, you realize you are not operating on man's economy, but on God's economy, and his bank cannot be emptied. Think about how an ordinary bank works. If you deposit a certain amount, you know you have a limited balance. If you spend it all, the account is empty until you replenish it. But the Bank of God works differently. It is not built on deposits you make, but on supply that never runs out. When you draw from it, nothing is reduced. When millions draw from it, nothing is diminished. Divine wealth multiplies as it flows, because its source is eternal spirit, not material scarcity. To live with this awareness is to step into freedom. No longer do you chase after wealth with anxiety. No longer do you fear lack or collapse. Instead, you rest in the certainty that divine provision is always present, always accessible. The Bank of God is not a someday promise. It is here now, waiting for you to withdraw from it. This truth is not about greed, nor about selfish grasping. It is about alignment with a higher order. When you accept that divine supply is unlimited, you release fear and step into confidence. You no longer worry about how or when things will come. You stop doubting whether blessings are available. You know without question that there is enough for you, for your family, for your purpose, and for all who dare to believe. The Bank of God cannot fail, because its foundation is eternal. If the Bank of God is unlimited, then the next truth you must understand is how to access it. Every bank account requires identification, a way of verifying that you are authorized to withdraw. In the spiritual sense, faith is your signature. It is the proof that you belong to the divine economy, the authorization that allows blessings to move from invisible into the visible. Without faith, the account remains untouched, not because supply is absent, but because the claim has not been made. Faith is not a vague hope or wishful thinking. It is certainty, an unshakable knowing that what you ask for is already yours. Just as you do not question whether the signature on a check will release funds, you must not question whether your faith will open the flow of blessings. Faith is your bold affirmation. I know that I can draw from divine supply because it is my rightful inheritance. Think of a person standing before a cashier with a check in hand. The money has already been allocated in the account, but until the individual signs, the funds remain untapped. In the same way, divine supply exists. It has already been credited to your spiritual account, but unless you sign with faith, the transaction never takes place. The abundance remains unseen, not because it was denied to you, but because it was never claimed. This is why so many people struggle. They believe in God, but they do not truly believe in his unlimited supply for themselves. They may accept the idea in theory, but hesitate to sign the check with confidence. Doubt, fear, and feelings of unworthiness keep them from accessing what is already theirs. Faith requires you to rise above those voices of lack and declare boldly, "This is mine by divine right. I receive it now." When you make a demand upon divine supply through faith, you are not forcing God's hand. You are simply stepping into alignment with a law that has already been established. Faith is the mechanism, the bridge between spirit and matter. It is the exact point where the unseen becomes seen, where the invisible supply enters the visible world. And here is the beauty, the size of blessing is not determined by God's willingness, but by the boldness of your signature. A faint, hesitant scribble of faith releases little. A bold, confident signature of faith opens the floodgates. Your faith determines the measure of your withdrawal. So strengthen your faith. Feed it daily with words of truth. Declare what is yours before it manifests. Sign the check with confidence, knowing that heaven's vaults are limitless. Faith is your identity card, your authorization, your signature. Without it, the account remains untouched. With it, the riches of divine supply flow freely into your life. One of the greatest misunderstandings in spiritual life is the habit of begging for blessings. People approach God as though he were reluctant to give, as though they must plead, cry, and wear themselves down in order to be noticed. But the truth is, begging has no power in the divine economy. You are not a beggar, you are an heir. The blessings of heaven are already yours, credited to your account in the bank of God. The only thing required is for you to claim them by faith. Think about how children relate to a loving parent. A child does not beg for food or shelter because they know these things are theirs by right of relationship. They may ask, they may expect, but they do not crawl on their knees in desperation. In the same way, you dishonor your spiritual inheritance when you beg for what has already been freely given. Claiming is an act of authority. Begging is an act of fear. When you claim something, you stand tall, you speak with certainty. You say, "This is mine, and I receive it now." There is no hesitation, no doubt, no wavering. You do not question whether the bank of God will honor your request. You simply write the check and present it. But when you beg, you reveal that you are not convinced of your rights. You treat God as if he withholds, as if he is stingy, as if you must perform to earn his approval. Nothing could be further from the truth. The divine law is clear. What you ask in faith, believing, you shall receive. Notice the key word, believing. To believe is to know. To know is to claim. Begging does not believe. Begging doubts. Begging says, "Maybe if I cry enough, something will happen." Claiming says, "It is already done. I accept it now." Imagine standing in a courtroom. If you have legal rights to an inheritance, you do not beg the judge to give it to you. You present your claim boldly, supported by the law, and the judge releases what is yours. Spiritually, the law is faith, and your claim is your affirmation. When you speak words of faith, strong, clear, unwavering, you file your claim in the court of heaven, and heaven always honors the law. So ask yourself, are you begging or are you claiming? When you pray, do you approach with desperation or with boldness? Do your words tremble with fear, or do they ring with certainty? The difference is everything. One closes the door, the other opens the floodgates. Today, choose to stop begging. Stop pleading as if divine supply were scarce. Lift your head, strengthen your voice, and claim what is rightfully yours. Claim abundance, claim healing, claim peace, claim love. The bank of God is unlimited, and its doors are always open to those who dare to step forward in faith. Faith is not random, and it is not vague. It is not a mystery that sometimes works and sometimes does not. Faith operates under a law as exact and precise as the law of mathematics or gravity. Just as 2 + 2 always equals 4, faith always produces results when applied with certainty and persistence. The law of faith is exact, and once you understand this, you stop living in guesswork and begin living with confidence. Think of planting a seed in the ground. When you place that seed into fertile soil, water it, and expose it to light, you do not wonder whether something will happen. You know that the law of growth will take over. You may not see the seed sprouting immediately, but you trust the process because the law is consistent. The same is true with faith. When you sow faith into your thoughts, words, and actions, the harvest is guaranteed. It may not appear instantly, but it will manifest in due season. Too often, people treat faith as a gamble. They say a prayer, make a declaration, and then anxiously watch the clock, waiting to see if it worked. But faith is not gambling, it is law. It always works when applied correctly. The variable is not God nor divine supply. The variable is your belief, whether you stand firm or waver, whether you continue watering the seed or dig it up with doubt. This is why Scripture describes faith as the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Evidence means proof. If you truly believe that faith is evidence, then you no longer wait for visible confirmation to feel secure. The unseen proof is enough. Just as you trust a receipt to prove a purchase before the product is delivered, you trust faith as the receipt of your answered prayer before it manifests. Consider how exact other laws are. Gravity never fails, whether you believe in it or not. Electricity never fails, whether you understand it fully or not. You don't need to beg gravity to hold you down or plead with electricity to light a bulb. You simply align with the law, and it works. Faith functions in the same way. It does not require begging or pleading. It requires alignment and trust. When you see faith as exact, you stop entertaining doubt. You no longer wonder, will this work for me? You understand that if you meet the conditions, unwavering belief, spoken word, and aligned action, the result is inevitable. The harvest may not come in the way you expect, but the law never fails. So treat faith with the same confidence you treat any law. Plant boldly, speak boldly, stand boldly. Know that the law of faith is exact, and when you operate within it, the outcome is guaranteed. One of the most liberating truths you can ever realize is that your spiritual account is already credited. Everything you need, everything you desire, everything required for your highest good has already been provided in the unseen. The bank of God does not wait until you ask to begin preparing your blessings. They exist right now, fully funded, ready to be drawn into your life by faith. Think of how a bank works when a deposit is made into your account. Even before you spend it, even before you touch it, the balance is already there. It belongs to you. You may not see the cash in your hand, but you know it is credited in your name. You don't panic, wondering if the money is real. You trust the record. In the same way, heaven's records already show abundance in your name, your health, your prosperity, your peace, your opportunities. They are waiting, credited in full. The problem is that most people live as though their account were empty. They say, I don't see it, so it must not be there. But that is like a person refusing to believe their bank statement because they haven't withdrawn the funds yet. Just because it hasn't manifested in your hand does not mean it isn't real. The credit is there, and faith is the withdrawal slip. This is why faith is not about convincing God to give you something. He has already given. Faith is about aligning yourself to receive what is already done. When Jesus said, "It is finished," he meant it. The provision, the healing, the breakthrough, the blessing, finished, completed, credited to your account. All that remains is for you to step up and draw it down into your reality. Imagine walking through life with this awareness. Instead of striving, you rest. Instead of begging, you claim. Instead of fearing, you trust. You know that every need is already answered, every prayer already supplied, every desire already accounted for. You are not trying to make blessings happen. You are simply cashing in what already belongs to you. And here is the beauty. The credit never expires. It does not diminish with time. You cannot outspend it, and you cannot lose it. Even when you doubt, even when you hesitate, the balance remains. It is eternal, waiting for the moment when your faith grows bold enough to withdraw. So stop living as though you are broke in spirit. Stop speaking lack. Stop declaring, I can't, or I don't have. Begin speaking as one whose account is overflowing. Declare, my account in the bank of God is full, and I draw from it now. When you think this way, speak this way, and act this way, you align with divine law, and the manifestation must appear. Your account is already credited. The supply is already yours. All that remains is the act of faith to bring it forth. The greatest barrier to receiving from the bank of God is not the size of divine supply, but the size of your own belief. The universe is limitless, yet so many live with limits they have placed upon themselves. They ask for little when they could ask for much. They shrink their expectations because of fear, doubt, or the opinions of others. But the truth is this: you do not exhaust God by asking boldly. You limit only yourself by asking small. Consider how a child thinks. A child does not calculate whether a parent can afford their request. They simply ask with full trust, believing love will provide. But as adults, we learn to reduce our desires, to lower our voices, to avoid disappointment. We tell ourselves not to dream too big, not to expect too much, because what if it doesn't happen? That is not faith, that is fear disguised as wisdom. Faith dares to believe in the impossible. Faith dares to stretch beyond human logic and enter into divine abundance. When you say, "I'll just settle for this small blessing," you are signing a tiny check against an account that has no limit. You are leaving treasures unclaimed, opportunities untouched, miracles unopened. The bank of God does not ration blessings. It does not say, "That's too much, come back later." It says, "As your faith is, so be it unto you." The measure of your receiving is set by the measure of your belief. Think of a water faucet connected to an endless reservoir. The supply is infinite, but the flow depends on how far you turn the handle. Turn it a little, and you receive a trickle. Turn it wide open, and you receive a flood. God's supply is the reservoir. Your faith, unrestricted, bold, fearless, is the handle. When you limit yourself with doubt or small requests, you are barely opening the faucet. When you dare to ask largely, to trust greatly, the floodgates open. Limiting beliefs come in many forms. Some believe they are unworthy. Why should I receive more than others? Some believe they must earn blessings. If I work harder, maybe then I'll deserve it. Others believe resources are scarce. There isn't enough to go around. But these are lies born of fear. Truth is that your worthiness is not earned, it is inherited. You are already a child of the divine. The truth is that blessings are not wages, they are gifts. And the truth is that supply is infinite. There is always enough for all who ask. So stop limiting yourself with small thinking, small speaking, and small believing. Expand your vision, expand your requests, speak words of abundance, act as if supply is endless, and believe without hesitation. When you remove self-imposed limits, you will see the evidence of unlimited blessings. The only restriction on your inheritance is the size of your faith. Your words are not empty sounds, they are creative forces. Every word you speak is like a seed planted into the soil of your life, and those seeds will always bear fruit. When you understand this truth, you become careful, intentional, and bold with your speech, because you recognize that your tongue carries the power of life and death. The words you speak today shape the reality you step into tomorrow. Too often, people sabotage their own blessings through careless words. They say things like, "I'll never get out of debt," "I'm always sick," "Nothing ever worked out for me," and then they wonder why lack, sickness, and disappointment keep showing up. Their words are writing checks of poverty and fear, and the universe is cashing them with exact precision. The law of faith responds to speech. It cannot differentiate between what you want and what you fear. It simply multiplies what you declare. But just as negative words produce negative results, positive, faith-filled words produce blessings. When you say, "I am prosperous," "I am strong," "I am favored," you align with divine truth. These are not empty affirmations. They are spiritual claims filed in the courts of heaven, and the bank of God always honors them. Think about how a declaration works in the natural world. A judge declares a verdict, and the law enforces it. A leader declares a holiday, and the nation observes it. Words spoken with authority carry weight, and things change because of them. In the spiritual world, your faith gives authority to your words. When you declare with conviction, creation itself bends to align with what you've spoken. This is why you must guard your tongue. Every complaint, every negative confession, every careless remark is like signing a withdrawal slip for things you do not want. Saying, "I can't afford it," reinforces lack. Saying, "I'm always unlucky," reinforces struggle. But saying, "I always prosper," plants a seed of abundance that will surely sprout. Saying, "Doors open for me," paves the way for opportunities to appear. Words also act as magnets. What you speak repeatedly, you attract. This is not magic. It is alignment. Your words shape your beliefs shape your actions, and your actions shape your results. Speak abundance long enough, and your mind begins to see abundance everywhere. Speak peace long enough, and your spirit begins to rest in calm. Speak healing long enough, and your body begins to respond. So discipline yourself to speak only what you desire, not what you fear. Use your words as tools, not weapons. Let your daily language be filled with declarations of abundance, gratitude, and victory. If you want to change your reality, change your vocabulary first. Speak as though your blessing is already here, because in truth it is. Your words are the steering wheel of your destiny. Point them toward faith, abundance, and divine supply, and they will carry you exactly there. Faith is not wishful thinking, nor is it blind hope. Faith is the evidence, the proof, the substance of things not seen. When you operate in faith, you are not pretending something exists. You are standing firmly on the reality that it already does, even if it has not yet appeared in the physical realm. Faith is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, the unseen deposit and the seen withdrawal. In the natural world, evidence is what convinces a judge or jury of the truth. It is what proves beyond doubt that something is real. In the spiritual world, faith itself is that evidence. It is the conviction that God's promises are already fulfilled, the inner knowing that your blessing is guaranteed. You may not see the healing yet, but faith declares it is already done. You may not hold the financial breakthrough in your hand, but faith proclaims it is already credited to your account. This is why faith does not wait for circumstances to line up. Faith speaks before it sees. Faith acts before it feels. Faith rejoices before the manifestation. To the outside world, that may seem foolish, but in truth, it is the highest wisdom. When you live by faith, you are aligning yourself with divine law, and that law cannot fail. Imagine a farmer planting seeds in the ground. He does not dig them up every day to check if they are growing. He does not worry whether they will sprout. He has evidence in his hand, the seed packet, that guarantees what he planted will come to pass. He waters, he waits, and he trusts. Faith is the same. The promises of God are the seed packet. Once planted in your heart, they are sure to manifest. Your role is to water them with words of belief, not doubt, and to wait with expectation, not fear. Faith also transforms how you respond to delays and obstacles. Without faith, delays feel like denials, and obstacles feel like dead ends. But with faith, delays become preparation, and obstacles become stepping stones. Faith reminds you that what you have asked for is already on the way, even if the route is longer than expected. Faith is the evidence that sustains you when your eyes see nothing, and your hands hold nothing, yet your spirit knows everything is already yours. This is why faith cannot be half-hearted. Doubt is like canceling your own check before it clears. One moment of doubt can undo the work of many affirmations if you do not quickly return to belief. Faith must be consistent, steady, and unshaken, because it is the evidence you hold until the manifestation arrives. So treat faith as more than a feeling. Treat it as a legal document, signed and sealed by the bank of God, guaranteeing your inheritance. You do not need to wait for the manifestation to celebrate. Celebrate now, because the evidence is already in your possession. Faith is your receipt, your proof, your certainty that the unseen blessing is already yours. If the bank of God is unlimited, why would you ever write small checks? Yet so many believers do exactly that. They ask timidly, they pray with hesitation, and they settle for less than what has already been promised. Writing big checks of faith means daring to believe in God's limitless supply, and boldly claiming what you truly desire without shrinking back in fear. Think about how a check works in the natural world. The value of the check is not determined by the piece of paper, but by the funds available in the account. You can write a check for $10 or $10 million, and as long as the account is sufficient, the bank will honor it. God's account is not only sufficient, it is infinite. There is no request too large, no blessing too great, no dream too bold. The limitation is not in God's account. It is in your courage to fill in the amount. When you pray small prayers like, "Just give me enough to get by," you dishonor the abundance of God. You are withdrawing pennies from a vault overflowing with treasures. Why not dare to say, "I receive wealth in overflowing measure. I receive health in radiant abundance. I receive opportunities beyond imagination." Writing big checks of faith does not mean greed. It means trust. It means recognizing that divine supply is endless and that your receiving does not deprive anyone else. The bank of God is so unlimited that the more you draw, the more others are inspired to draw too. The world trains us to think small. We are told, "Don't get your hopes up. Be realistic," or "Don't ask for too much." But faith has never been about being realistic. It is about being supernatural. Writing big checks of faith is choosing to ignore the voice of limitation and embrace the voice of divine abundance. When you declare boldly, you prove that you trust God's capacity more than human logic. Remember this: you cannot bankrupt heaven. You cannot overdraw your spiritual account. Every time you ask, every time you affirm, every time you speak boldly, the bank of God is ready to honor it. The angels do not look at your request and say, "This is too much." They rejoice when you finally ask largely, because it shows that your faith is maturing. To write big checks of faith, you must also expand your imagination. See yourself in the life you desire. Speak it aloud as though it is already true. Act in alignment with it, even before it appears. The universe responds to bold declarations. The timid request brings little. The bold demand brings much. So today, stop signing small slips of fear and hesitation. Take the pen of faith and write a check so big that only God could fulfill it. Then hold it up with confidence, knowing that the bank of God has already credited your account in full. The greater your faith, the greater the withdrawal, and the greater the testimony of abundance in your life. One of the most powerful truths about the bank of God is this: its supply is not only for you, but also through you. You are not meant to be a reservoir that hoards blessings. You are meant to be a channel through which blessings flow. When you understand this, you realize that every gift, every opportunity, every break through you receive carries with it the potential to bless others. The bank of God overflows, not so you can merely accumulate, but so you can circulate. Think of how a river flows. Water enters from the source, travels through the channel, and nourishes everything along its path. The river does not ask, "Will there be enough for me?" It simply allows the flow, and because of that, it is always full and always refreshing. In the same way, when you position yourself as a channel of divine abundance, you never lack. Blessings flow in and blessings flow out, and yet you are never empty because the source is infinite. Many people make the mistake of clinging tightly to what they receive. Out of fear, they hold on to their blessings, thinking they might run out, but this very fear creates blockage. Just as a pipe clogged with debris cannot carry water, a heart clogged with greed or fear cannot carry divine flow. The more open-handed you are, the more freely blessings move, and the more abundantly they return to you. Giving is not losing, it is multiplying. When you share your abundance, whether it is wealth, wisdom, encouragement, or opportunity, you become proof of God's limitless supply. You show others that there is no shortage in spirit. Your generosity becomes a testimony that awakens faith in others. People look at your life and see not only what you have received, but also what you have given, and they are inspired to believe that they, too, can tap into the bank of God. Being a channel also shifts your perspective from me to we. You begin to see yourself as part of a greater flow, where every person is connected to the same infinite source. This means that blessing others does not reduce your own portion. It expands the collective experience of abundance. You rise and others rise with you. To be a channel for others, you must live with a spirit of generosity. Speak words that uplift, give resources that empower, share opportunities that elevate. When you receive, ask, who can this bless besides me? That mindset keeps the divine current flowing through your life. And here is the secret. The more you pour out, the more God pours in. The bank of God never allows an open channel to run dry. Your giving makes room for greater receiving. Your blessing multiplies as you release it. You become not only blessed, but also a blessing, a living demonstration of heaven's unlimited account. So open yourself fully. Let every blessing that reaches you become a stream that flows to others. In doing so, you will discover that the bank of God is not just for your life, but for the transformation of the world around you.